Okay, so I'm calling the meeting to order, and I'd like to introduce the members of the committee who are here today. On my right is Councilmember Onishi, and on my far left is Councilmember Iligan, and then Councilmembers Kern. And don't laugh down there, he put me off beat. And Councilmember Kanuha, Councilmember Eoff, Chair Jay Yoshimoto, and Councilmember Brenda Ford, and Councilmember Val Poindexter. Okay, I'd like to, oh, and I'm the chair, Margaret Willey. Okay. And I'd like to take statements from the public, and let me see, Pahoa, do you have someone to speak there?
Yes, ma'am. We have a testifier for your committee this morning.
Okay, and Dave in Waimea, is there anyone there with you?
Good morning, Chair. No, we do not have any testifiers for your committee.
And Hilo?
No, Madam
Anyone in Hilo?
Madam Chair, we have no testifiers for your committee.
Okay, and I don't know whether Kahu is on or not.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Yes,
There's
do you
no
have any
testifiers for your committee.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Let's start with Pahoa, and then we'll come here. I see a testifier here with us today in Kona. So, Pahoa, want to introduce your speaker?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. This morning we have Mr. John Olson representing himself to comment on communication number 236 and resolution 99-13. Whenever you're ready. And then if you let me know when you transfer, I can restart your time if you need it.
Well, it's all one.
Together? Okay, go for it.
It's all together. Yes, good morning, Madam Chairman. Thank you for this opportunity. I think this is very timely, given the fragile nature of the electrical grid on this island and the road infrastructure. Any part of this county could become isolated due to natural disaster, and could remain isolated for a long period of time. And I think that issue, which is not raised in your communication, should be, because it is a significant reason why county facilities should have backup capability, and solar is about the only way you're going to do that. And I think you'll find that it would be well worth the cost when we do in fact have a major earthquake or a major wind event or any number of things that could impact the electrical grid and road infrastructure, which would create an isolation within the county. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I hope that the issue of emergency preparedness could be added to this resolution, and looking into what Homeland Security or FEMA might also be able to contribute in terms of funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, my mic's off. Okay.
Aloha and good morning, Madam Chair and council members. Having been on the Honolulu City Council for 12 years, it feels funny being on this side of the bench, but good morning. I was a national energy champion for the whole country, U.S. Department of Energy National Energy Champion in 2002. I was the Energy and Sustainability Coordinator for Honolulu, and many years ago, when I was a younger fella, I was in Hilo as an energy analyst for DBED in the Hilo office before Hawaii County had an energy coordinator of its own. So I actually wrote the outdoor lighting code that created all those low-pressure sodium lights that you're working hard to replace. So you can blame me for those. The resolution today basically proposes to accelerate what you've already started. This building, for instance, put in solar using what's called a power purchase agreement, and this is a financing tool. The same is true for the Waimea police and fire stations. They were also done using this third-party any form of financing. So the resolution basically says, let's do more. Let's save more taxpayer money. Let's do more facilities. And this is basically the approach that the State Department of Education has done. We're putting solar on all of our schools statewide in the next 5 years using power purchase agreements. And the beauty of these is investors are able to leverage federal and state tax credits that government can't access. We don't have taxable exposure as a county government. So you want to be able to use those investors to lower that cost, typically around 65%, plus there's a really nice 5-year federal depreciation schedule. So that's attracting investors from all over the country and all over the world to do solar here in Hawaii. Right now, 1 in 4 construction workers is working in the solar field because of this activity. And a large amount of that's being driven by power purchase agreements. All your big box stores here in Kona, the Kona Commons Shopping Center, all of those projects were funded using power purchase agreements. So if you fail to use this, if you don't do this, it basically means you're giving more money to Hawaiian Electric every month. Why do that? The Department of Education, for instance, their contract, they're buying power at 19 cents a kilowatt hour. That's half of what we're paying here. So why would you waste taxpayers' money? Why would you not get moving as fast as you could to get these types of projects out the door? So the idea is to do, once again, what the State Department of Transportation, Education Department have done, put out a RFP that says, come on in, bring on projects. Look at our electric bills, tell us what's doable, what's not doable, and start signing some contracts and kicking them out the door. These are really easy because they're design, build, operate, and maintain.
Holmes, you can continue on a little bit more.
All right, thank you. So you don't actually own the solar system. You're not buying anything. You don't need something in the county budget because you already have something. It's called utilities, and you're basically agreeing to buy a certain portion of your power at a discounted rate rather than paying at the higher rate. How could you go wrong with that? So, Madam Chair, I'll make myself available for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to turn over the chairmanship to my vice chair, Valerie Poindexter, and read first. I don't know whether read second. Oh, read the communication first. Thank you, Deputy Clerk.
Communication 236, Resolution 99-13, urges the administration to install photovoltaic systems on as many county facilities as possible using third-party financing such as solar power purchase agreements. From Council Member Margaret Willey, dated April 9, 2013, urging the administration to put out requests for proposals for photovoltaic systems as a means to provide relief to the county's operating budget.
All right, at this point, I'd like to make a motion for this resolution, or to...
She's the chair.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
Point of order? You actually have to relinquish the chair, and then she'll accept the chair. Okay. Didn't hear either. We didn't hear it down here.
Yeah, because I didn't say, let the record show that I am now assuming the role of the chair. So can I have a motion on Communication 236, Resolution 99-13?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Eoff and seconded by Councilmember Onishi. Any discussion, Margaret?
Yes, thank you very much. And I'd like to preface this as being in the context of our budget discussions. We hear many good ideas, and I just this is an idea that walked into my council office, and encourage everyone to listen and encourage their constituents to bring in more ideas. So here is one that came in and was a very good idea, and I just thought I'd move it right along. And I think that what we're looking at here is how do we work work on economies of scale. That was something that Mark Au said that we underutilize. How do we leverage our position, whether it has to do with printers or utility issues or anything else? And so I just want to stress some of those themes that I felt were important here, as well as partnerships with private businesses and how we work together. And also say in the testimony that we heard on Kulani Prison that maybe building solar units would be a thing to do there, so that we really think in sort of a comprehensive way and how do we save money and at the same time leverage our position as certainly the highest user of electricity on the island. So basically, again, this would be urging the mayor, this isn't the council that would be negotiating this is urging the mayor to look at installing photovoltaic systems on as many of our county buildings as possible. In the county of Maui did this in 2011 and urged whatever contractors to come in, bring it into us. And you are dealing with HELCO. One does need to work on that, and there were a couple places where it didn't work out or there were issues, whether it was through I don't know whether they do HELCO or some other monopoly entity. But they were, in the first year, Maui reduced its costs down to 14.7 cents per kilowatt hour instead of our 40. And over the average extended period of the agreement, it would be 18.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So again, this is just urging the mayor. This looked like a really good idea. Certainly one of the key costs of a lot of our county departments is electrical costs. So I think that's what this is all about. If you all have questions, and probably Mr. Holmes is a better person to ask anything technical, I urge you to support this. And I think then turning it back to you.
Thank you. Right now we have a representative from our research and development, Will Ralston. So I'd like him to come up, and if you could come forward. And if you could state your name for the record and then proceed with your statement.
Good morning, Council. My name is William Ralston. I'm the Energy Coordinator for the County of Hawaii, and I would like to discuss this resolution. And I know Steve Holmes, so we've talked about this before.
So can you pull the mic?
Yes, I can.
Further, or get closer to the mic. Thank you. You could pull it towards you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so should I get right into it? Great. Solar photovoltaic works 5 hours out of the day. So it's a great idea in proper placement. The West Hawaii Civic Center has a staff that works from 8 to 5 p.m. The sun works from about 8 to 4 p.m. It matches the building perfectly. So photovoltaics on buildings like that, perfect use. Now, putting photovoltaics up also pushes higher costs onto people that cannot. So like the low income, the elderly, the fixed income. By putting up a photovoltaic system on county, we would essentially opt out of the HELCO billing system because now we have cheap power at 20 cents. And we'd be pushing that cost onto others. So my viewpoint at this time with photovoltaics is do it at the right sites, like the West Hawaii Civic Center, where we also have a battery provided by the Department of Energy, so a $500,000 grant. to store the excess energy. We have a 250 kilowatt photovoltaic array. The building only needs 100. The battery takes 50 and discharges into the building at night. Thereby, we have renewable energy from about 8 a.m. to 3 a.m. So we're almost net zero. I like doing these systems where we have a complete system with a battery, photovoltaics, and electric vehicles. The electric vehicles are operating as if they were using $2 a gallon gas. These are complete systems. Another place we could do more photovoltaics is the county building in Hilo. We only have a small array there, and we own it. I would suggest that we do probably what Steve had mentioned. I didn't hear it, but did you mention power purchase agreements? Yeah. I think that's the way to go, because then the developer owns it, and if something happens to the photovoltaic system, they come out and fix it right away because it's revenue they're losing. What I've concentrated on at the County of Hawaii is doing projects that pass on the savings to the ratepayer. So with our water department, we're putting up, and we just awarded a wind farm to the same people that developed the wind farm at the north end of the island. We're putting up 3 megawatts of energy at a 60% capacity factor area. 60% capacity factor is world class. It's the highest in the world. Therefore, 60% of the time we'll get 3 megawatts out of that. Everything we do at the Department of Water Supply, because the board has said we're going to pass on all the energy savings to our ratepayers, goes right to the ratepayers. If we do photovoltaics on the County of Hawaii building, where does that money go? Well, it gets put back into the Public Works budget. Sometimes I don't get to see it again. So what I'd like to start talking to the council about is maybe capturing those savings to do right projects. It's called the revolving fund. So, back to my original statement. Photovoltaics are a great idea. Maybe not the best idea, because wind farms are actually, at the Department of Water Supply, are better. You get more savings and we can pass them on to the ratepayer. Where do we want to do photovoltaic projects? Strategic areas like our wastewater treatment plants that need a lot of power, and they can operate when the sun shines. And we can go into a lot more detail. I think you're getting my gist, but there's a little more fidelity I'd like to talk about. The idea of a revolving fund to capture energy efficiency, energy savings from photovoltaics to get more projects is one of those. If you have any questions, I could probably go on for quite a while, but I'll just end with this. The centralized generation model adopted by the utilities at the turn of the century is probably the most efficient way to produce power. Now, monopoly, especially in the islands, doesn't always pass on those efficiencies. So doing things like what Steve's suggesting, putting photovoltaics up, is a way of decreasing costs. But remember, every time we put up photovoltaics at county that can get its revenues from the taxpayer through property taxes, we are pushing those costs onto the poor and fixed income that cannot. So we're actually doing something negative at this time with the mechanism the utility currently has called financial decoupling. So there's a lot that maybe we all can be educated on together, and it's taken me quite a while to figure all this out.
Councilmember Ford? Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Don't forget
I've never professed to be an energy wizard, but I have to take some exception to the fact that you're saying that we're pushing the cost off to the poor people. The reason I feel that way is the poor people are paying taxes, property taxes as well. We all pay property taxes one way or another. If you own your home, you pay it. If you rent your home, you're paying it to the landlord who pays it. So ultimately, when we reduce the cost of the county's expenses in the electrical area by having these photovoltaics, we are saving the taxpayers from a potential rate increase on our taxes because we're not getting enough revenue to sustain the level of services that we're all desperately working here trying to achieve. So from that perspective, I have to respectfully disagree with you. I understand, because I have PV on my home, I understand that you know, when you're generating it into the network, Helco is basically getting it from it at the highest rate. But it's energy that they didn't have to pay to create. I'm paying to create it. I put it on my house at my expense, and I'm paying to generate that, and I'm basically giving any excess I don't use to Helco. Do they sell it at the same rate? They do, but they didn't have to pay. Therefore, I'm keeping their generation costs a little bit lower. Not much. My house is not very big. So I have an issue with that. I actually support this resolution. I understand what you're saying, that not every location is prime. The angle of the building may be wrong. We might not be able to put something on the ground for reasons of safety and security. I totally understand that. Perhaps in a very rainy area, such as, I'm just making this up, so Volcano, forgive me, in Volcano where it rains a lot, a generation. Accepting all of that information, however, it is, in my opinion, this council's responsibility to get as much of our expenses to the lowest levels that we can. And I see that in this power purchase agreement process as being something that we desperately need to do as fast as we possibly can. So with those statements, I would like to ask Mr. Holmes some more questions. Mr. Holmes, when you were on your council, Honolulu, right? Okay, when you're on your council, did the Honolulu City and County do these power purchase agreements, and in what manner did they do them, i.e. how fast, how many projects did they put into a contract in order to get the maximum return on the non-investment of the City and County of Honolulu? Can you just give us a little more information on that?
Sure. Well, keep in mind I'm an old guy, and I was on the city council in Honolulu quite a number of years ago.
It's okay. You still understand this stuff.
The cost of solar has dropped dramatically in the last 5 years. Last year, for instance, you could get panels delivered to the Big Island for $1 a watt. And, you know, we're looking this year, by the end of 2013, to see that drop even further, probably around 75 cents. So the market conditions have dramatically changed. The other thing is that interest rates are much lower than they were back when I was on city council back in the 90s. And the investment appetite for these types of investments has dramatically changed. So this is kind of a unique opportunity where you've got federal and state tax credits. You've kind of got a perfect storm, if you will, from a financial standpoint to move on these. And once again, don't look at Honolulu and what Honolulu has done. Look at what the State Department of Transportation, the State Department of Education, what those guys are doing today. Now, I think the world will, and I think the projects he's done are great projects. But I think he and I have a basic philosophical agreement. You know, while it might be nice to have batteries on all of your locations and take advantage of that, and this is a remarkable project, the one that's right here. But you don't need to do that. And the PUC rules specifically allow for net metering. It's written into how they finance the utilities. I would disagree with Will and that it's somehow taking away from poor folks because, as you pointed out, they're all paying taxes. So if they're benefiting as taxpayers, that doesn't hurt them. And the PUC rules are structured in a way where Hawaiian Electric isn't hurt either, so it doesn't get passed on to the backs of the poor people as a result of that. So I just philosophically disagree with that concept. Right. So it's really do you want to see a whole lot of savings, or do you want to continue plodding along and doing individual projects where, the solar companies are not going to put in a solar project where it doesn't make economic sense to do that. They're just not going to do it, right? Their investors won't support a project of that sort. So why not give it a chance? Why not open the door? Why not make those projects
All right. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I personally agree with you and think we should move forward on doing as much as we possibly can, but I'm going to yield at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Onishi?
Thank you.
And then I'll go to Councilmember.
Yes, we had the discussion earlier before this meeting, and I mentioned about, the theory was that, or I guess the Helco would be mentioning that the price, if there was too much photovoltaic, that the burden of the expense would come upon the people who are on the grid, and you just kind of explained it, but maybe you can go a little bit more detailed.
Yeah, basically the Public Utilities Commission passed what is called decoupling, and that means that Hawaiian Electric isn't dependent on making money for their investor-owned utility based on the sales of electricity. They've decoupled that. So that's where the PUC comes into play, and we have a consumer advocate that plays a role at the PUC to make sure the consumers are protected, and they always try and find a balance. And so a number of things have happened under the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative to change those rules to become more progressive and find a way to allow more renewables onto the grid without hurting our monopoly utility in the process or hurting individual ratepayers. So there was an increase in the amount that we all pay as a result of decoupling, but the whole point was to create a market condition where now your avoided costs are higher, so you're more likely to put in that solar hot water system for your home. 40% of the electricity in your home is from a solar water system. If we can give you a $1,000 rebate, if we can give you financing with 0% interest, where that solar hot water system saves you money from the very first month, then you're more likely to put it in. So you've got to kind of create market conditions to make all of this stuff work. And I'm just saying that there's a market opportunity for the county to take advantage of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Kern?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I grew up on a completely off-grid solar home, old trace inverter, battery banks, big China diesel generator that made a lot of noise, and the lights, time to go to bed is when the lights went out because the batteries drained. So I know a bit about this. I used to build green homes. I've installed solar systems, PV systems, net metering systems, standalone systems, and I think it's finding that balance. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Wilson has said. Right place at the right time. And it is, the net metering, there's only a limited amount of space that Helco or the grid will allow to be net metered. Once that's filled up, it's done. And as it fills up, there is costs that get pushed on to the other consumers that do not have net metering, because Helco has to maintain base load power, firm power. So if we use like 180 kilowatts, let's say, Helco has to maintain that because they don't know if it's going to be sunny or not. And the base power, the greatest demand of power comes in the evening or in the mornings. People are getting ready to go to school, go to work. In the evening time, that 5 to 8 o'clock hour, cooking, dinner, TV, etc., the PV system at that point in time is not working. You have a standalone system, you have your battery bank, it's fine. You're of no effect onto the grid. So when that's happening, Helco still has to maintain that base load power, and that's where the cost comes into play. So they have to have it in, be it the oil, geothermal, biomass, even wind is not base load power. Everything has its place. My point is we just need to find a balance in that. There's a place for this. We should have it in our various facilities at the right place in the right way. I like this with the backup battery system. It's a great concept because during that peak time, well, maybe not here, we're still providing power here. It's not shutting off and then we're feeding back in and Helco, and we're trying to make this big adjustment, loading up our panels to get to a net zero. It's hard to get to a net zero without having that battery. You have to go so heavy with so many panels, and you're producing so much and we're pulling back in so much. So I think it's a good resolution. I think we should, there could be some tweaking on it, but I think the mayor and the administration is savvy enough to look at it and say, we could do this here, we could do that here. Overall, it says, yes, we should encourage this. I think the power purchase agreements are a good thing. They have their own maintenance. It doesn't become our issue, our maintenance people. But it is a balance to me of saving the taxpayers money by reducing our energy costs, but not creating an additional burden to the other ratepayers that do not have the capacity to actually get a PV system. And we will be taking up that space. So I support it. I think with anything, we just need to find balance. And thank you.
Thank you. Council Member Iligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Holmes.
Yes, sir.
I like this resolution. I'm in support of this. The thing is, with administration, they're already doing it. I believe they're looking at all the potential of looking into solar as energy. I do wanted to mention that Maui County has, I believe, completed a project, 1.9 megawatts of solar energy. And I'm going to read this out to you. The project will provide power for 11 sites with a combined system capacity of 1.9 megawatts. The sites include four fire stations, 2 senior centers, the Lehiana Police Station, the Eddie Tam Community Center, and so on and so on, with 3,696 panels. And this investment alone will save the county in total more than $10 million over 20 years. So this power purchase agreement, it's great. Maui County is doing it. Hawaii County needs to do it. I totally agree with the fact that this government, our government, needs to be efficient. And one of the things that Councilmember Kern talked about, I've voiced out to HELCO, and I believe a substation they had like 15% can only be tapped into solar. And when I talked to the representative in HELCO, I came to find out that they did more research and they are actually fine with 100%. And what they're doing is, once they reach a point to where they're kind of iffy, like let's say they 90% or let's say 80% on solar. Well, what they'll do is they'll stop any installment solar, and if let's say there's 10 applicants. Well, to do the research, what they'll do is divvy up with that 10. So let's say it costs $2,000 to do it all. Well, that $2,000 will divvy up with all the 10 applicants. So HELCO is actually working with the public to make sure that they do install solar, and it's not in their business to do that. And right now, with our energy, we have 180 megawatts powering Hawaii County. And currently, what's happening is that it's getting lower to produce this, to power this island. The reason why is because of the high electricity, people are more conservative. They're starting to say, this is too much, let's turn off the light switch. They're changing to CFL bulbs, and they're being smart. We as a county need to do the same thing. Let's turn off our light switch and also invest in solar. But good job. I like it. Aloha.
Thank you. Councilmember Yoshimoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Willie, I think your resolution is fine the way it is, because I think the language that you have in here states, strongly urges the administration to expeditiously put out RFPs to install photovoltaic systems on as many county facilities as possible. So, after listening to the discussion, that provides some leeway, because, you want to send a strong message, which is fine, but you're also saying that as possible, which is, as practical as we're hearing. So I think that's good language. I think it's fine the way it is, unless other council members disagree with the language. So you have my support. Thanks.
Councilmember Ford.
Thank you. I would like to talk to Mr. Ralston just a little bit in front of the council about this issue. Mr. Ralston, you brought up the revolving fund to capture the revenue from these projects so that we can see what we've got, and we can also apply that money to more projects like this, whether it's solar or wind or whatever, that there would be a capturing of this. Excuse me, that requires what we call a special fund, so that the savings then go into the fund and can be a line item identified by the finance department and the council and the administration. Right now, we do not have such a fund. I think we should have that fund. I think you are completely correct in what you have stated. Here's the problem. Only the mayor and the administration are allowed to request such a fund through the council process. I tried to pass a charter amendment to allow the council to do that when we thought it was important, and unfortunately it didn't pass. I think the voters didn't really understand what it was about. Regardless, it didn't pass. Right now, we're being told that we cannot have a special fund that is initiated by the council. We need you from the administration to bring us a resolution to the finance department asking that special fund be set up. I will tell you right now, I'll vote for that because I believe in being able to see what we're saving or capturing or whatever. So just for your information, I would look with great anticipation in seeing that kind of a fund to capture that. I don't know that you'll get support from finance, but I think we should have what you're asking for. And would you like to comment on that?
I would. So in the Green Government Action Plan that was signed, there is an attempt at talking about a revolving fund. In the recent Kohala Center 5-year roadmap, which is available at the Kohala Center site, it mentions the idea of a revolving fund. Many municipalities have revolving funds to do just thing. It takes a combination of portfolio management skills and also knowing which projects return on investment. You don't always pick one that returns on investment right away. You pick a portfolio, long-term, medium-term, and short-term. And we can do it, and I will talk to the mayor about it, absolutely. Back to the Maui going full out with the 1.9 megawatts, they came to the County of Hawaii to ask us for our RFP and our power purchase agreement. So we gave that to Maui so they could do their large PV project. I thought at that time, because I'm one person, doing the Department of Water Supply at 3 megawatts is worth doing 20 of those that are out there on the West Hawaii Civic Center. So I made a calculation of how much time I have, and the fact that we can do 20 of those with one site, and we just awarded it, means that we just did 20 PV projects worth of energy savings, and it all goes to the ratepayer. So there's no West Hawaii Civic Center budget is alleviated, and you know, we have more money to do other essential services. But with the water department, what's really cool about that is we pass it directly on the water bill, the savings. So that's why I did that. That's worth 20 PV projects.
Okay, Mr. Olson, I'm not denying that what you did was a good decision, and I love the fact that Water Supply is putting in PV systems and it's going back to the ratepayer. Huh?
Wind farm.
Wind farm. Don't care what it is, whether it's PV or wind farm. I think it's wonderful, but that does not change my position that we need to do this for the County of Hawaii other than water supply. We need to do this to keep our expenses under control and protect our taxpayers from a potential rate increase, if not today, in 2 years or 3 years. So I still think, I know you're only one person, and that may be a problem because you might need an additional help. But maybe if we do these power purchase agreements, we can bring them in and let them run the show as far as, you know, doing these projects and maybe offload a little bit of the work from you. Not much, I'm sure, but some of it.
I agree, and I just would like to finish with, I'd be happy to educate, and with Steve, who's very, very, very bright in energy, on the differences of PV energy, which is intermittent and does not provide firm power, and a lot of people do have the notion that they're providing power to the grid, when in essential it's not really firm power. But we can enter those discussions in energy at the time when you call me before to talk about the energy program and all the different options we have going forward.
Thank you. Does anyone object to me asking Mr. Holmes a question? No. In your experience, basically, you have to continue through the financing term, right? So you took into consideration too that if future power costs drop, that you still have to stay on that the terms with the power purchase agreement?
Yeah, so the way a power purchase agreement works is you have a starting point. So you start at paying less than what Hawaiian Electric charges you today. So you see immediate savings. We all know that Hawaiian Electric rates are going to continue to climb in the future. That's the history. And so the savings over time, over 20 years, to the county actually increases when you do a PPA. So you have immediate savings and long-term savings. And these all self-finance. You don't need a special fund to do it. That was well intended. In some ways, you actually want to keep the money in the individual departments so that Dora Beck has money to put in new pumps and motors at her wastewater treatment plant because you've now freed up money in that budget in order for her to do that. Or if it's a new ball field and you need money to redo a field in your districts or provide equipment that you don't have money for in your budget. So think of it as a way to free up money that you don't need a special, and you really want to use other people's money because other people's money, the investor money, they can leverage the tax credits. The county can't do that. If you just go out and do your own projects and use your own money, you're walking away from 65% of the cost of that project being a write-off. And so why would you do that? That makes no particular sense at all. So I know the comment was well-intentioned, but and Will and I still have some issues about the grid and all of that. But the real issue for all of you is you have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of this county to save money and to use that money wisely. So I would encourage you to consider continuing to push to do more. And if Will needs more help, well, let's help give more help.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm willing to even volunteer my time. I've done these for a living. I've got nothing better to do. I'm retired, and I can help out.
Okay.
He's got extra desk space up in his office area.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering your time. Made the public statement. I don't know if you'll regret it later. But does anyone else need to speak before? Okay, so I'm going to allow Councilmember Margaret Willey to close on this.
Hey, I again want to say that here we're urging the mayor to work on this, and I agree with Chair Yoshimoto that obviously that it's where it is possible and where it's reasonable, and that there is a balance of issues. And I do think that anything that we do where we're really working on that economy of scale and putting some pressure on HELCO and working with private parties to do so, and not, just as Kauai opted out as a co-op. In other words, we're dealing with a monopoly whose first obligation is to their investors, not to the consumer. And we have to, I think, keeping that in mind. So I would appreciate whatever follow-up you all can communicate on a different level than certainly I can or most of us can, and see what we can do here. If we just took the wastewater facilities, just there, I think their cost was 1/3 as electricity. So, again, I think we're all on the same page and have the same concerns, and appreciate, Mr. Holmes, all your knowledge, and will appreciate your work in trying to find the right balance. Thank you.
Okay. So, any further discussion? Being no further discussion, then I guess, can we do a voice vote, I guess? Okay. So, all in favor to approve Communication 236, Resolution 99-13, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. So Resolution 99-13 moves forward to Council with a positive recommendation.
Madam Chair, I move to adjournment.
It's been moved by Councilmember Iligan, seconded by Councilmember Yoshimoto. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Sorry. Thank you. Going.